And here we go. So this is the Central Absentee Precinct, largely pre-processing, and on Election Day, Central Absentee Precinct Poll Watcher training. CAP is a single precinct. So on Election Day, it is treated as a single precinct. And the pre-processing, which is going on, covers all of the activities before Election Day. Then there is a CAP on Election Day. And then after that, there is the post-Election Day processing of absentee ballots that come in like from drop boxes on Election Day and also through the mail up until the Friday following Election Day, which this year will be November 8th. So let's just look quickly at what the materials are here. And Ying, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and interrupt me, okay? So this is the outside of the external mailer. This is what actually goes through the mail. It's sent from the company that manages all of this, which is out in Washington State. And they have a list of all of the absentee ballot applicants, both permanent absentee ballot applicants and the ones who just asked for it for 1 year. And so they mail these out. And you can see on the outside, we have, that's my name. We have the voter ID, which is public information, so I don't mind it being revealed. And then it's returned. If I were not here, this would get a yellow label on it from the post office, and it would be returned to the Office of Elections here in Fairfax. Here's the back of it. It just has instructions on it. You see there's a little hole there just so that it can be seen that indeed there is something in the envelope. This is the ballot itself. It's not a very close-up image of it. I'm sorry, these are the instructions. This was a 19-inch ballot in 2024, so we have 3 folds, which is 1, 2, and 3. Everything, because it's Fairfax, has to be in 4 languages: English, Vietnamese, Korean, and Spanish. So everything is translated, and it's always surprising that they get it on 1 page, but they do. And here then is inside that external envelope is the return envelope. So this is what the voter is going to put their voted ballot in. As you see, it says return envelope official ballot, and it's going to the Fairfax County Office of Elections. And it too has a little hole right here because they want to see if there's anything in the envelope when they get it at the mailroom. And we'll look at that process. Here's the back. So in the back, we have a tab, like a flap. It says, do not remove this tab. And here it has a QR code with my voter ID number, right? So that shows that it's me. And here we have, again, my voter ID number and another copy of a QR code. So lots of ways that this can be scanned in at the post office, at the mailroom, and eventually at the mailer check-in, which is the first place that the poll watchers are allowed to observe in pre-processing. Underneath that tab, so you flip up the tab if you're voting absentee, here is all the required information. As you see, as usual, it's in our 4 languages. We have to put in the name, address, city and zip code. You have to sign it, signature of voter. You have to put the date. And these are new items that were added in 2022. The voter's birth year, not the full birth date, but the birth year, and the last 4 digits of the voter's social security number. This is particularly valuable. It's a much better security and verification of the voter than just having a signature. We do not do signature matching in Virginia anyway. And so this is going to be all under the tab, but it's not. So I fill this out. I put my ballot in after I filled it out. And then the tab is glued down. You pull off the tape and it seals like an envelope over all of this information. And then here is the ballot itself. And as you see, it too has the 3 folds. It's 19 inches. And so then that all is mailed in. So the mailed in ballot that is received, this information is all covered up by the tab. This is what it looks like with those scannable codes when it arrives at the post office and when it arrives at the mailing room at the Fairfax County Government Center. This, underneath this little tab, should be all of the verification information that will be used to make sure that that ballot is from a registered voter and that the registered voter is who they say they are, which is verified by the year of birth and the social security number that's put in there. Now, what we do is we teach the poll watchers at CAP on the basic procedures of CAP. We give them all of the information online as well to further educate themselves, and we give them a reporting mechanism so that we can get end of shift data from each of them. And we have shifts for the 3 processes that are going to be at the CAP. And again, these are not, you're not running the equipment, you're not doing the job, you're just observing. You want to talk to the chief or the assistant chief if there are any questions. And you are the second line of defense as a poll watcher. The election officers doing the work, we hope, are the first line of defense, that they are actually trying to obey the law and do everything properly. Many of them are Republicans this year, the chiefs, and as long as we have a Republican governor, by custom, the chiefs in all of the pre-processing in the CAP and in early voting and on election day are all Republicans. So that helps. You always go in assuming that they're doing a well-run operation. And frankly, in the CAP and pre-processing, it is a well-run operation. They are experienced, they're well-trained. And so we are respectful, professional, polite. They will be respectful, professional, polite. But there are certain things that we can't see because it has PII, personal information on it, such as the ballots once that tab is removed, right? At that point, all of that Social Security number and year of birth are exposed. You can bring in your cell phone, but you cannot take photos or videos of any kind. So we will give you a print form that you can print out, and you write your numbers on that. And then there's an online form to enter the numbers so that it can be looked at by the analysts. And you're always there representing the Republican Party, so you're always going to be on your best behavior. These are the operations. It's a workflow. So they receive the ballot. They check in the ballot at the mailer check-in. If the ballot has issues, it's going to go to something called cure, where the voter will have an opportunity to, send an affidavit, say, with their signature if they forgot to put it on the signature, or to attest to the day that they sent it. Any number of things could be involved in curing it. Usually it's not that the information is wrong, but the information was simply left off. They then open it with a machine that will look at. It's an automatic envelope opener, nothing terribly fancy goes on then. The ballots are then extracted, and then the ballots are scanned. And then as a completely separate activity, there are hand counts of other ballots that either have come in an unusual form, or usually overseas, ones that have been folded up in some way that cannot be run through the scanner, or ballots that for one reason or another simply do not scan. They get rejected by the scanner, and those are all hand counted. Hang on one second. Hopefully that will stop binging at me. So the activities that we observe as poll watchers are the mailer check-in, which is where those ballots that have been received are actually being checked into the Virginia registration system, Veris. We can see the ballot extraction, and we can see the ballot scanning. So these are the 3 major activities. The mailer envelope opening is pretty routine, and the curing is done elsewhere in the building, and we don't see that typically. The receipt is down in the mailroom, and we don't see that. And we can, of course, see the hand counts and observe those. So these are each a different station: the check-in, the extraction, and the scanning. We just went over that. You cannot, so one of the things that you cannot see is anything with personally identifiable information, PII, which means that the mailers, which by the time they get up to the mailer check-in have had that tab removed, are not something that we can see close up because we are not allowed to see PII. You wouldn't want somebody else seeing the final 4 digits of your Social Security number. We don't see the final 4 digits of theirs. What we can do is we can see and hear the operations at a distance of about 5 to 20 feet. And you can hear if there's anything untoward happening. You can see the process, and we can certainly copy the data from daily and cumulative logs that they create. Now, in addition to that, we have access to and look at 2 data products. One is the daily absentee list, and the other which is just what it sounds like. It's the list of everyone who applied for an absentee ballot or anyone who is voting in person in early voting. And so that we get a daily version of. And with that, we can really see who's going to cure. We can see how many ballots have come in. We can see, for an individual record, we see when they applied. We see when the ballot was received back. We see when it was checked in, or if it wasn't checked in, if it had to go to cure, we see that. We see when it was finally accepted or if it was rejected. All of that shows up. So an individual could have 6 or 7 rows of data in the daily absentee list. And then there's an equivalent document that we get from the county itself, the daily absentee list we get from the state, and the county one is called the public absentee ballot application list, and it's very closely comparable to the daily absentee list that we get from the state. So using that data, we can provide a good profile of what's actually happening to parallel what you're seeing in person. You will sign, when you sign up for a shift, you agree to this code of conduct. We introduced this in 22. It really just protects you so that if somebody says, oh, so-and-so did, behaved in some inappropriate way, you can say, no, I didn't, because I signed the code of conduct. And it also gives you a formal recognition of our escalation process, which is that if you see noncompliance, if there's an issue, and you communicate it with the polling place chief, or in this case with the CAP or pre-processing chief or team leads, and then there's, and you don't get satisfaction, you don't feel that they have answered your question, then you go directly to the legal resources hotline, which is provided by the Republican Party of Virginia. That's staffed by a great number of lawyers. And they have both an email and a phone number that you can call, which we will show you here, but are also on all of your materials that you will be sent in the mail and that you can also download at the resources page. You will be sent this authorized representative letter. This is required by law. For every shift, you need to print one of these out because they will keep it. When we do these, we put the person's name, we personalize them. Your name is actually pre-printed there because we don't want these just blank out in the wild. And so we always say, if you're going to do more than one shift, print out a whole bunch of them, keep them in the car, and then you've got it ready to go. You will also get a one-page pocket guide. It's very brief, but just some things to remember as you do your job. And in that same packet will be the report form for CAP that you can write numbers on and observations and so on. We structure that. And so the code that governs your access to as a poll watcher, right, is 24.260.4.4, which is on your poll watcher form, your authorization form. But it also allows you to see that absentee ballots are being processed. And so there's a number of both codes and guidances that govern what you can and can't do as a poll watcher, but you absolutely have the right to observe the CAP because it's a precinct, right? The CAP itself on election day becomes a precinct. Before then, everything is called pre-processing, but in Fairfax, we also get access, as most counties do now, to observe the pre-processing activities. So here, we're not even going, you can go look at these at any time to see all of the relevant laws. And we're basically looking for anything that appears to be unusual. There will be all kinds of regular processes that they're going to be doing. And that really is what you're going to see almost all of the time. If you see anything, if you have a question, definitely talk to the chief, the team leads. They become chiefs or election officers once they go into the ballot scanning and extraction process. But you don't want to talk to the worker bees. You don't want to talk to the regular election officers. There will be team leads, and they're very good there about answering questions. If they're right in the middle of work, don't interrupt them right then because they need to concentrate. But there's always times when you can say, "Hey, can I talk to you in just a few minutes when you're free?" And they'll almost always be very, very good at answering questions. Sean Stewart is the deputy registrar of absentee voting. And he will stop by periodically every day. And they may direct you to ask him a particular question, or you may just have the opportunity to ask him a question, or you can contact us and we can ask him a question and CC you. So, you bring any questions to this, and you do it usually in the form of, we try to be tactful rather than accusatory for this first step, right? Which is, hey, I thought it was this way and I see you're doing it that way. But otherwise, if you don't get satisfaction, we go immediately to the lawyers, right? There's no intervening anything. You're happy, great. You're not, you call the RPV hotline. You also include it as an incident on your shift report form. Their email is help@virginia.gop. I always say call and email, right? Do both, because you might get voicemail here. I think they look at the emails right away. They have a large group of lawyers. They said 500 for Virginia. I don't know if they got that many yet, but they certainly have a lot of them. And then please CC us on any issue at all at pollwatchers@fairfaxgop.org, which is our all-purpose, constantly staffed email, because we want to know when something went on. And sometimes we can intervene very quickly. We've done this in the past, this year and many other years, and get a clarification on procedures, get you access to maybe something that you didn't have access to, make sure that you have the information you need to be a great poll watcher at CAP. So again, what we just said, don't argue, escalate, ask your question. Hopefully you get an answer that works. Otherwise, escalate to the RPV hotline. If there's any issue, document it, right? Write it down, because it gets complicated. You'll forget. That's why you have the report form. Always bring a charged cell phone so that you can call the RPV hotline or email them. Always have a pen and your report form printed out so that you can write notes. And we suggest not to chat. Sometimes people will be chatty. They'll want to, and it's just like when you're talking, you're not listening. So don't do that. And they can kick you out. We had somebody kicked out this year. It became very confrontational. Individual who had the best intentions in the world, lovely person, but they did not understand why they could not see up close all of the ballots in the mailer check-in. And the answer was because they have PII on them, but they weren't comfortable with that answer. So it does happen. They may kick you out, or we may suggest that you could work more usefully someplace else. We have a resources page where we constantly update information. I'm hoping to put up all of the full CAP manuals as soon as I get them in response to the Freedom of Information Act request. So that's also a place to check periodically. And we have a phone number locally. All of this will be in the materials that you'll get in your email tonight. But this is a rollover phone number, so if it doesn't reach one of us, it reaches the others. And so we suggest definitely calling that, as well as the RPV hotline up here, if you have an incident. But call them first, because they're the lawyers and they can help you right away. We're the local talent. We can help with mediation. We can help maybe get an immediate conversation going with the registrar's office. Dress respectably, but be comfortable. You're going to be inside the whole time, so it's not like a polling place where you might have to do a curbside and go out into 20-degree weather. You will check in initially at Suite 323. This will be on your confirmation form that you get when you sign up for a shift, which is the main Fairfax County election office. And they will probably take your poll watcher form there. Sometimes it depends on who's at the desk. Sometimes they send you down and you give it to the person at the CAP check-in, but usually they'll keep it at the main desk. They'll give you a lanyard and a vest, and that will identify you as a Republican and also as an authorized representative. It's a very bright vest. You will look like a safety officer. And then you will be identified. They will direct you or take you to where you need to go. And the mailer check-in is up on the 3rd floor. I think I haven't actually done mailer check-in this year, but the ballot scanning and the ballot extraction and then scanning is down on the 2nd floor in conference rooms 9 and 10. And any of the guards can direct you to where you need to be. You're always going to bring a copy of your letter of authorization, because the chief is going to keep it, right? He has to put it in his file for every shift. So you want to have a bunch of those. You'll have your pocket guide. and you'll have any other information that you choose to download or keep. And you can, in a polling place, you can bring food and drink. If you need a small bottle of water or something, that's usually permitted as long as you're not in your ballots. But typically you don't bring food into where the ballots are being processed. You introduce yourself to the chief or assistant chief or the CAP team leads. And you say, hi, I'm the Republican poll watcher, and here's my letter of authorization. They will, you're wearing your vest by this time, and you may have submitted your letter of authorization upstairs. They'll show you to a chair where you can sit, but you can also wander around and see what's going on as long as you stay out of election operations, traffic paths, and also so that you're not in a position where you can see PII. So you can see more to a large extent downstairs on the scanning and ballot extraction than you can up in the mailer check-in, because that's where they have the social security numbers of the voters. So mailer receipt, meaning when the mailer actually shows up in the mail room downstairs, and mailer check-in are not officially part of the CAP precinct operations. Okay, so, but we do get access at least to the mailer check-in. The envelope opening, the ballot extraction, and ballot scanning are all part of the CAP pre-processing activities. And I think we just went over all of this. Mailer check-in room, yeah, is room 337. They will take you there. They won't just have you wander around. It is way behind one of the bathrooms. Once you know where it is, it's easy to find, but until then, you won't know. So we have shifts. Shifts are nominal. Shifts are notional. They're short. We have 3 of them. You can always take more than one shift if you want to stay there. You can grab lunch down on when they have the cafeteria open if you want, and then come back. But these shifts are not always happening. A lot of this depends on how many mailers came in and what stage they're at. So for example, if all of the mailers have been checked in, and they're now piled up and ready for being extracted from the envelopes and scanned, they might not have a morning shift for mailers, right? Because the mail will come in at noon, let's say. And so they won't have anybody checking it in because there's nothing to check in. But they would have a lot of people doing scanning shifts and probably doing, the ballot extraction shift, and then with those ballots, the scanning. So every day is different. We create the shifts, but we try to call you the day before to determine whether to let you know whether or not shifts will in fact be happening. Right now, there's a ton of absentee ballots coming in. In the beginning of the week, there's always Monday or Tuesday. Typically, there's a lot. So I think we will have solid shifts tomorrow, and then we'll double check. But there's certainly getting a lot of them coming in. Not, however, as many as in 2020. Because of COVID. COVID made a lot of people send in absentee ballots who are showing up to vote in person now. So we say Semper Gumby, right? Just be flexible. We will reach out to you and let you know if the shifts are on. But it's never a sure thing. Although early in the week it's surer than in the middle of the week. So this is the mailing room. So here we're going to look at some flow charts just to get a sense of what we're doing here. Ying, can you see that okay? Okay. I'm going to assume you're going to tell me you can't see it if you can't.
I can see.
Okay, super. It's big enough, and I think it'll show up for the recording. So these are also at the resources page, and you can download them and look at them individually. And so this is just the mail comes in twice a day, and they also get the absentee ballots, of course, picked up at the end of the day. It's in early voting and also on election day from the drop boxes. And in Virginia, the only place where drop boxes are allowed to be is in a polling place, or it could be immediately outside the door of a polling place, as long as there's an election officer keeping an eye on it. There is one fixed, big, huge drop box permanent structure in front of Fairfax County Government Center that is under video surveillance, and they pick up the ballots from that every day as well. It's always retrieved with 2 election officers. They try to make them of different parties, or at least one unaffiliated. And then they also are receiving UACAVA ballots. So these are uniform and overseas citizens absentee voter act, UOCAVA. And these are ballots sent by the military and by a larger number of just civilians who are overseas. They can request the ballot or download it in a digital form, or they can get it by email. There's a wide range of ways that they can receive the ballot, but they have to return it in paper in Fairfax. Not every state is the same, but in Virginia, in Virginia, UOCAVA ballots have to come back in paper form. So they have to send it by DHL or FedEx or whatever. And then we also have some of these will come in, right, from the mail, but they will not be ones that actually reach the voter. They will be mailed to them in some way, but they will have been undeliverable. So undeliverables are also coming back all the time because they're mailed out possibly to an address where somebody has moved. The mailroom date stamps them because they need to have they have 72 hours after the point that it's date stamped to be able to get it into the mailer check-in. So the voter made an effort to get this to the government saying, hey, I voted. And the government has an obligation, therefore, to give that voter credit as soon as possible so that no one else can come in and claiming to be that voter steal their vote. So the date stamp is very important in the mailroom. Now, the mailroom is going to review the envelope, so they're going to remove that flap and they're going to look for obvious omissions, right? They're just, it's like, is it missing everything? You know, did they just send it back with nothing? Those will go into a cure tray to be cured, meaning that the voter will have an opportunity to fix the situation. Otherwise, they put them into these trays, and we'll see, they literally look like large trays, and they are color-coded, which we'll see, and they have logs for how they do each one. And then they're going to record each of those individual tray logs, which are bundles, is what they call them, bundles, and they each have the date on them of when they arrived. And those are all recorded into a master log as well. And so those ballots will have that date of arrival, and that log for that particular batch will travel with them through this whole workflow so that they can be kept in a group and dealt with in a group in their different categories. And then those are all put in a very secure place. Then those that need to go to cure, right? So the mailroom guys say, oh, there's nothing on this one at all, or they left off the signature or whatever. They just look for complete omissions, can go immediately to cure, and they want to cure these as quickly as they can to get back to the voter so that the voter has the maximum opportunity to fix the situation. Everything is focused on the voter getting a chance to actually express their choices and to vote. They mailer receipt and mailer check-in staff identify ballots that need to undergo the cure process, but mailer check-in staff are going to be doing a much closer look because they're going to be comparing what was written on that security envelope that was under the flap to the voter registration information. What's important? Well, we looked at an absentee ballot, right? And we saw there what it was. It has to show material information, the first and last name. They have to have the address, the signature, the year of birth, and the last 4 digits. This is the most important from a verification point of view and has in itself prevented a lot of absentee ballot fraud, or potential fraud, we'll say that way. And then we have a picture here, but we saw that before. But this is what it looks like if someone writes in the information. And then here we have the another picture of it, basically. So the cure process has to get done at the end of the day, Friday before the election. So ballot delivery from the drop boxes is going to come in from the mail, right? And that's the end of the cure process. They have to notify the voter of any problems. Now, the voter has until close of business on Friday after the election. So they have to basically, if they don't get the ballot in and the cure process started by this Friday before the election, which is November 1st this year, then, you know, they have to get out to the voter. At some point, you have to put a deadline. So after that, the ballot would be rejected if it needs cure. But if they have notified the voter, right? So the voter's busy trying to get the affidavit in or whatever is needed, traveling up from Richmond with ID, that voter has until the Friday following the election to do the cure. Check-in process. So everything is going to be logged. Everything is going to be counted. That's what you see is people counting again and again and again to make sure that they have not overlooked anything, to make sure that the log shows exactly the number of absentee ballots that they are actually dealing with. There's the tremendous effort not to lose anything, not to overcount something, to make sure that that tray that got checked in at the mailroom has the same number in it as it flows through all of the processes and all of the workflow. So you will always see a lot of counting and a lot of concern about keeping track of everything. So you can't touch anything. Just remember that. You can't touch anything. It's like in a regular polling place, right? You can't touch ballots. You can't touch equipment. You can't touch election materials. It's just the usual. So the staff is going to look for tampering and defacement of mailers and report anything like that. If you see something like that going on, it's not likely in Fairfax. It could be elsewhere, but you would certainly look for that too. As one of our poll watchers recently noted, in all of our places, there is no covering over the tables, right? There's no tablecloth going down to the floor under which there could be secret boxes. Everything is visible. Everything is logged. You have the ability to see the logs and the numbers on every box. You can copy all of the numbers from the logs. So they have been very good about, you know, making things available to us so that we can attest to their transparency. And by requiring that, and it certainly is far better now than it used to be, we didn't used to have any access to this. It also encourages them to be transparent, and it encourages them to really be very meticulous about what they do. There's some usual things here. They shouldn't leave their computer unattended and log out before they step away, because that's the voter registration system showing, right? So the only person who would see it would be another election officer who would be there, or a staffer who would also have taken an oath. But it's people get sloppy, they get tired. And it's important that they protect the voters' personally identifiable information. Just as they are protecting it from you, they also need to, in a sense, treat it very carefully as they do their own work. If you suddenly see unauthorized people milling about, a lot of media will show up in polling places. Media should not be showing up in the cap. If they do, they should be very attended, and they certainly should not be allowed to wander back where the voter registration information is showing. And just to make an additional point, the information that shows and Veris on the Virginia election registration information system is everything, right? It's full Social Security number. It's all of the history of that voter's interactions with the election systems, possibly for many, many years. And that's very different than what you see on the poll pads, which poll watchers are allowed to see. Poll pads are a very small snapshot of information only needed for that precinct on election day, or for the county in early voting, but it does not show any part of the Social Security number. And it just shows name and address and enough information that the election officer can get that person checked in with some degree of verification. The poll pads are limited. There are downsides to that, but the poll pads therefore can be seen by poll watchers. This information here is very different. It's actually everything. So that's why we don't. That's why poll watchers are not allowed back into the mailer check-in area, but you can observe the processes from a distance. So the ballots are placed in trays, and the trays, they get moved from one color to another as they process them. So red is what's done for what they call digital ballots. It doesn't mean that the ballots were entered digitally in the internet in some form. It means that they were sent to the voter potentially digitally, or the voter could have even downloaded them digitally, but then they had to fill them out and, fold them up and put them in some kind of, print them out and put them in some kind of mailer and get them back in. The green tray is for completed or checked in mailed digital bundles. I'm sorry, digital ballots refer to any absentee ballot. I apologize, I said that wrong. A digital ballot is any absentee ballot. It also includes all of the UOCAVAs that arrive by mail. So checked in ones are in green trays. Red ones are ones that have not yet been checked in. Gray is for the drop boxes. Blue is for the completed email ballots. That was what I was referring to before, which are going to be your UOCAVAs from overseas. And black is the triage, right? Black is always your worst case for triage. And that's for ones that need curing. What we have here is just a sample of what those look like. The trays are actually, I don't know, about 3 by 2, something like that. And they have, as you see, they carry the date in front of when they arrived. And so that will just go with those ballots all the way through the workflow till they go through ballot extraction and scanning. And so here's the curing. So they're going to go to the cure team after they've been identified as a problem. They are checked into Veris, right? But they're checked in as having been received, not as having been accepted, if you, right? Because they may not get cured. So the voter isn't getting credit yet, but they do want to say the voter got it in, so they did receive it. Then it's going to go through the review for omissions. If it's a mission that does not require curing, meaning that it's non-material, then it's not an issue. Most of them will require curing. And so now it goes into the cure log. Okay, this now is tracking everything that needs curing. This is what we see on the daily absentee list. We'll see the cure log. Oh, this person shows up in the cure log on Thursday, having had their ballot received then. And then, now they have to figure out how are they going to reach out to that voter. It can be very difficult. They don't always have an email address. They don't always have a phone. They may have to send postal mail. They do everything they can to reach out to the voter, but the voter only has till noon on November 8th, the noon on the Friday following the election, to get in their cure. If they don't, then the ballot's going to be rejected. This is the tracker that they use just to, now this was for the primary, which is why it says Democratic on it. As you see, June 18th, Democrat primary. It's just the count that they use to track what was checked in as a domestic mailer, what was checked in as a UOCAVA, and what goes to needs cure. And they just keep adding to this just to keep track. Now, here is the Omation machine. I believe this is the one that they're using now. This is the older one, which they use to slit the ballots open. It's a process that typically is not in the room that we're seeing. It's pretty noisy. They used to have it in the same room. And so they're not extracting the ballot. All they do is take the absentee ballot and put it through this machine and slit it open. Once they do that, now we're at ballot extraction, and you can absolutely see the ballot extraction process. And in this, they're going to take them in their, once they've been slit open, they're put back in a tray. They're typically put in a yellow tray after they've been opened. So the ballots go and they put the label showing the date that it arrived on the yellow tray. So now if it came September 24th, that yellow tray is going to show September 24th, but these have now all been opened and they're still the same batch. They're all staying together with their little fellows. And so they're going to put them then out in their trays, one by one. They put them in big racks, keep them in a secure area. And then once they have enough of these, they bring in the teams to do the ballot extraction. And so that there will be sometimes mailers that have 2 ballots in them. There will be mailers that have no ballot in them. That's probably the most common. There will be mailers that have a utility bill in them because somebody got mixed up and sent their ballot to the utility company and their utility bill to the Office of Elections. All kinds of things happen. Those are all called faulty mailers, and they will try to get those cured, but many times it's not curable at this point. But they'll do what they can. to let that person know, hey, you've got a problem, and that will go up to management right away to make a decision as to whether or not they even reach out to the voter. So they remove the folded ballot from the mailer, and everything is counted again and again and again. And they literally will switch sides. So they're going to switch seats. So they do this in twos because they're always double checking each other's work. Nobody is doing this on their own. And then after one person has counted it, they physically move to kind of get a muscle memory change. And they count everything again. They count the mailers that they've extracted them from, the envelopes, and they count the ballots. And then they try to keep them in bunches of 50. And they are then going to flatten them as best they can. Well, right now they're keeping them folded. They put the empty mailer in one set of boxes. The mailers are now separated out. If they have a visibly damaged ballot, right? So somebody spilled coffee all over it and it's all warped and has jam on it or whatever, that goes in a do not scan area to be hand counted. But otherwise, they're just counting them at this point. And then they're going to record those counts on the ballot batch tracking team log, which we have access to and which we actually look at and keep track of to compare against the data that we're getting, the daily absentee list. Now, the empty mailers go in these yellow trays again, and those will be stored. Those are considered official election mail because they have the voters' actual information on them. Once you pull the ballot out of a mailer, that ballot is now completely anonymous, which is what we want, right? We don't want to know that Joe voted for, Harris and Mary voted for Trump. But the mailers themselves are election mail because they show that they're proof that that voter did return their ballot, because that's the mailer, the security envelope that has their QR code and their voter ID and their address and their name and all of their material information that they did indeed fill out, including the final four of their social security number. So the mailers are kept, going to be stored. They unfold the ballots, they put them in a batch box, and they transfer it to a QA team, which is going to physically QA these to make sure as much as possible that they can, in fact, go through the scanner, which is the next stage. So they do everything they can to track them, right? They're now basically putting them in a box, and the box is associated with a number of the batches, and the box number itself with the associated batches goes into the master log for the ballot extraction. All of this is a way to keep track of the ballots. All of this can be observed, and we have access to all of the logs, and we write down the information in the logs, which lets us keep track of it, essentially using the documentation as well. So there's no like secret getting rid of ballots. There's no secret infiltrating ballots inside. All of this is done in such a way that it's observed. And you can you literally see them put it in the box and seal the box. And then the ballot extraction area is right next to the scanning area. So they will then move it 10 feet over to the scanning area, where then the box will be opened when they're ready to scan it. But if they're not ready to scan it, it'll be kept in a secure room, right? Maybe they only have one box and it's not enough to justify bringing in the scanning team until they have 3 or 4 boxes. They can afford to let them collect as long as they're in a secure area. Then they'll bring them all out, open them up, and scan them. So now let's look at ballot scanning. So this is the high-speed scanner. This is now actually out of date. We have a new one. They got a loaner, kind of like a loaner for a car, that they have fondly named Debbie. So they have these 2 older scanners. Denise is the oldest, dating from, 2019 maybe, or before. Dennis was obtained in 2020. And so that's actually kind of a long time. These things don't last forever because they get a lot of wear and tear. And then they got a loaner that they're calling Debbie, just so that they can distinguish it. And that's also presenting some problems. It's not a brand new loaner. It's kind of has a lot of wear and tear on it. What happens is these are not lubricated with oil. These are lubricated with forced air. And the ballots themselves have a huge amount of lint on them. They tend to get stuck. jam because of simply all of the detritus that comes off of the ballot. So they periodically will have to stop everything, open everything up, clean it all with compressed air, and get the ballots going back again. The experienced team is very good at knowing exactly how far they can push a machine, and they tend to baby them because in the long run, haste makes waste on this, and sending through the smaller batch will be more likely, and cleaning frequently will be more likely to get you more ballots scanned at the end of the day. So we have 3 periods of time for ballot scanning. We have pre-election day, which is all of the pre-processing phase of all of the ballots. So those are the ones coming in through the mail, and those are the ones coming in early voting from the early voting drop boxes. And there are ones coming in through the mail as well, not just domestically, but the uniform and overseas civilian or citizen, I guess, absentee voting act ballots that can be obtained in a wide variety of ways by people overseas, but which have to be mailed back, with actually the choices clearly defined on paper. So many of those will be hand counted, but some of them will be conventional ballots that are mailed in from overseas. And those, as long as they unfold well and can be flattened, can also be scanned. So they're going to receive the pre-processed or the processed ballots, right? And they'll be associated with these batches. They then are going to, on the first day, when we're past the first day now, for pre-processing, the machine should say 0, right? It shouldn't have any pre-processed ballots in it. And they have a document called the Daily Certification Log, on which they're going to put all kinds of information, which we can also get access to view and to copy. And we do every day. And then they are going to open the sealed batch box. They're going to check to make sure it has a ballot tracking log in it, which will have been put in, and the number 3 label sheet, that'll have been put in by the ballot extraction team. So here is the ballot tracking log. Here's how many batches you've got here. They're going to open them one batch at a time. They prep them as best they can. 19-inch ballots are tough to prep, but they do the best they can to get them physically ready. The QA team will also have been working on making sure they don't have any, torn ballots or anything like that. And then they're ready for scanning. And this is again pre-election day. So if they see visibly non-scannable ballots, those are going to be put aside. They put them in a do not scan or did not scan DNS envelope, and those will be kept in secure storage for hand counts. But if they do scan, they do them in sets, typically of 50. Hopefully that doesn't jam the machine. And then once they're done, they put them back in a batch box. They put the number 3 label on it. They seal and they sign it. And that is, if all things are good, that will now be ready to go to the courthouse on election night, along with the rest of the ballots that come in from the precincts and the ballots that were already boxed up from the satellites. But if there are issues, they have to, keep them around. For example, they're not going to go to the courthouse until they know that the media sticks that are in the DS 850 high-speed scanners actually will work. And let's go back real fast and look. So you can see here on the side, here is where the media sticks go. There's 3 USB ports here on each of the scanners. Typically, they only use one of them for a USB. It's about an 8 gig storage USB. These are not the kind you get at CVS. They are very high quality encrypted USBs used specifically just with the ES&S scanner equipment. ES&S is the company that provides all of the scanners for Fairfax. And so the USB will be put in, and then they will export the data every day, but they will not re-zero the machine. So every day there will be a USB here, the data will have been exported on it, and then that USB and that data will be logged and kept in a secure place so that it can all be downloaded on election day. They don't want to know what the results are before then, but they want to make sure that they can get the data out before then. But if for some reason that USB gets corrupted, they keep the ballots so that they can rescan them if they have to. And every USB is logged with the batch numbers of the boxes of ballots that were scanned and were stored on that USB. So if you need to go back and say, oh, gee, USB number 5 got corrupted, and I see that it's got, batch ballots, boxes 13, 14, and 15 on it, you can go grab those out of the secure storage, rescan them, and you know exactly which ones are associated with your corrupted USB drive. They don't usually corrupt. In 2021, they did. There were lots of problems in 2021 with USBs, but since then, that has not been an issue for the most part. Every now and then, there's an issue at a precinct level since then. So they do a data export on a daily basis. They will maintain the data. They turn in all of the data sticks, and this is all still pre-election day. So this is all before election day. So we're looking at the ballots that are coming in. I'm sorry, the absentee ballots that are coming in a variety of ways before election day. And then they're going to shut down the DS-850 and they're going to update the cert log. And this just is a close-up of that. So we can go that. Now, here is the A/B processing daily certification log. So the chief of the scanning operation has this, and you can see it on it every day. It has two parts. It has this section here, which is really mostly about the DS-850, and this section over here, which is all about that media stick, the USB stick, right? That is going in there, the little thumb drive. So every day that one of these rows will be filled in, you'll have the opening on-off seal number, because they put a seal every day over the on-off button. There will be a saved count when they open and a saved count when they close for how many ballots went through and the daily difference. Then they're going to put, when they close, they're going to put another seal on top of the on-off switch. And they're going to count how many DNSs there were, right? The ones that have to be hand counted that do not scan, and they're going to put on their initials. Then most of the time this machine is not zeroed. It will be at the very end of pre-election, so that when they start election day, it will be starting from a new zero. But they get the USB seal every night that goes over the USB compartment, right? And then they get it at the opening, and then they get the serial number from the USB drive itself. So all of that data we can get. They make it available to us. This is just a close-up of what we just looked at. And this is a close-up of the right side of what we just looked at. And then it's election day. So they're going to open the DS-850. It will have been zeroed, or they will zero it then, right? This is because now we're starting a whole new CAP process, and the CAP, the official Central Absentee Precinct, its unique legal status is now happening because it's election day. Now it's a precinct. So before then, everything was called pre-processing. So non-scannable ballots are going to go to secure storage because they're going to have to be hand counted. They're going to update the cert log. Everything is starting afresh. And this is the scanning that's going to happen on election day. They're going to keep going until they run out of ballots, or it's the end of the day. They keep on exporting the information onto the data sticks. And at the end of the day, they turn in all the number 3 boxes, the non-scannable ballots, and everything goes to secure storage, and they shut down the DS-850 and they update the cert log, and we can watch all of that and get all of the information. Now it's post-election day. Okay, so post-election day, we open the DS-850. It's a whole third category, a whole third kind of phenomenon now. There will be another zero report because it's this new phase. They update the cert log, and we go through the same process that we did before. So there will be 3 counts: pre-election, election, post-election. They may not zero it going into post-election because they tend to just continue on because they're getting, as they get Anyway, they combine them. They combine post-election and election day. It will be a decision, I think, based on guidances from the state as to whether they have to do an additional zero. We have information saying both that they zero it and they only zero it if directed. And so my guess is they may not zero it. They'll just keep going. But they do zero it at the beginning of election day. Ballot tracking. Again, this is going to, all of the ballots will be tracked. The numbers on the ballots will be tracked. The numbers and serial numbers on the data sticks will be tracked. And everything will be ready and logged to go to the courthouse, but not until the 8th of November. And even then, remember, they're still getting ballots in till noon on the 8th of November, the Friday following the election. Hopefully not a ton are coming in, and they would only come in if they were by mail, and they would only come in, they would have to be postmarked on election day or earlier. So they hope it's just a trickle, but if for some reason they get a great many, it's conceivable that this could go beyond the 8th of November. They would come in on the Saturday or the Sunday following the election and continue scanning if they had to. Or if, of course, if they had a corrupted thumb drive of some kind and they had to rescan ballots, then that might happen as well. And that did happen in 2021. So here is your paper report form, which we provide you. This is, you will get your authorization letter. We saw that. There's a 1-page, almost just like half a page, pocket guide with some processes on it. And then we have this paper report form. And and it has some just basic, what's your name and, what was the date and when did you arrive, and how to contact you if we need to. So we need that from everybody. But then depending on which shift you did, what area you worked, you can skip almost everything and just go directly to that. So it says, did you work on check-in? Did you work on ballot extraction? Or did you work on scanning? Or did you do hand counts? And some basic questions. And then we have a section for mailer check-in, and we have a section for scanning. I'm sorry, for ballot extraction here, and a section for scanning. And that's it. Then we have an exact duplicate of that paper form online. And so we ask you to, when you get home, or in your car, on your phone, or however you prefer it, there's a link here, fairfaxelectioninfo.com, and that goes to our survey form here. And we ask if you can put the data online. We have a team of analysts that are looking at it every night, and that lets us compare from day to day. Now, if there's any issues that we detect, if you see something important, right, don't wait to put it in the form. Give us a call the RPV hotline, legal hotline. The last thing we want is to have something going down and not find out about it until, 9 o'clock at night after you've managed to get it in and we've managed to look at it. And then we're going, oh my goodness, look what happened. We always say, see something, say something right away, right? It's kind of a modification on the saying. And that's it. You are ready to be a CAP poll watcher. So go ahead.
Okay, so the log is like the shift, for example, my shift, for example, is from 9:30 to 12 o'clock. So before I leave, and I should get the number, or?
Well, you may not be able to get any number if it's in the middle of the day.
Right.
So, and that's fine. We totally get that.
Okay.
You might be able to get the opening numbers, right? You would have that. So if you're in the middle of the day, you could say, what were the opening numbers? And they would be able to give you that, but they won't be able to give you the final numbers because they're still working.
Okay.
And typically the middle shift, what you're doing is you're observing for incidents. You're observing, oh my gosh, the equipment broke, which it broke down. It doesn't break, but it does break down. And that happens a lot. And you can get total backlogs, and make sure that if that happens, they're taking stuff and putting it back in secure storage, and it's not just sitting around. And so there's a lot of just, I would say, security and incidents that happen if you're in the middle of the day. If you're the first shift, you can get the opening numbers, and if you're the closing shift, that's great because then you get a lot of numbers at CAP.
Okay, so the opening number, the leader should have it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They'll have all of these numbers for you. They'll have, and they expect you to ask for them, and they're
Okay.
told that they need to make them available to you. Now, if they're right in the middle of doing something, they may not be able to do it,
Right.
at that second. But you can say, please let me know when you could give me those numbers, and and they'll, you just kind of hover, and they will get them to you. They will get
Okay.
them. And if for some reason you get somebody, every now and then you'll get a substitute, somebody gets sick or something, and they may not have been fully trained. Then you just call us and we contact Sean, or you ask for Sean and you say, hey, Sean, I just wanted to make sure that Joe here knows that I can get the numbers, and let's find a time when Joe can give them to me. I know how busy he is. Yeah, we're
Okay.
always diplomatic, but we are also persistent, and we get what we need, because without these numbers, we aren't, really getting the kind of insight into what's going on that we really need. So you're going to get your letter. You're going to get the
Okay.
report form, the
Mhm.
tiny little pocket guide. You'll get all kinds of links for the resources and to sign up for shifts, of course, for CAP. And the resources website is right here, which has resources for all our different kinds of poll watchers. So that includes polling place for election day and early voting, as well as CAP. Because we figure once you've, trained and taken this, we are happy to have you, get all the resources you want. Here is our rollover number, which reaches one of us. Here is our email, which reaches one of us. There's 3 of us doing this. One of our managers right now is in the hospital, so it will reach 2 of us at the moment, but usually it reaches 3. And then if you have any changes at all, you contact poll watchers at fairfaxgop.org or this phone number. But if you you'll get, as soon as you sign up for a shift, you will get your confirmation email, and it's generated automatically when you sign up, and that gives you a link to self-cancel as well. So if for some reason you can't make a shift that you signed up for, just click on that link and you can cancel out. And that actually is great, because what it does is it opens up that shift to now be available for somebody else if they would like to take it. And then we also have all of our basic information. Here's the link to take you to enter your online report information. Here is the Republican Party of Virginia legal helpline. And here's our resources page. And here's our scheduling or other local help. We often can help a lot locally as well, as a kind of ombudsman for you. And we are done.
Okay.
And I will stop recording.